Hey guys, this is Frank from Bass Rocket. Today I'm bringing you the next installment in my Elements dubstep tutorials. We're going to be teaching you how to make your own kick snare template or combinator. So basically it's got a load of elements to it, you save it as a patch and then you can just recall it, and all you have to do is then replace the drum samples and you can have a whole new set of drums. So what I'm going to do is teach you what goes in first, and then I'll connect everything up and then I'll explain how it works. So you create a combinator, name it kick snare, create first a maximizer, second a scream for distortion, then a line mixer, an RV7000, 3 EQs, a compressor 1, and a Kong drum designer. So you can slow that down or press pause or something and then load them all up in the same order as what I've got there. So we'll connect it all up. I'll explain first of all the way things work. So in this Kong drum designer, you basically load samples into these pads. So the first pad, I've got them linked together, we don't want that for now. The first pad, you want a low end kick drum. So you would find one, which we've got here, that's fine. And then the second pad, you want a high end kick drum, so something with a click or snap to it kind of thing. What we then do is we usually filter some of the frequency out of each one. So we want to keep the low end from the bottom kick drum, and we keep the high end from the top kick drum. Now there's a handy little filter bit here, or an effects unit, where you can choose filter by pressing show drum and effects, of course, and then going filter, high pass, because we want to get rid of the low end, and then put it about half, and that should give you most of what we want, so most of the high frequency part of the kick drum. For the bottom end, you can, if you want, take a lot of the high end out, but for now we'll just leave it as that. Now you can't hear anything because I haven't connected anything up, so what we want to do is we want to assign these to come out of one of the outputs of the drum designer here. So we click on the pad and it's here in the drum output. We've got it on a 3 and 4, which is fine. And our other part of the drum, we want that on 3 and 4 as well. Every time you load a new sample into here, it goes back to master effects. So you want, every time, just to check. If you can't hear anything, you might think, oh god, what's happening? 3 and 4. Then we link these together so they both trigger at the same time using this link bit here. So we can put D on that one and D on that one. So now when we trigger that, they both play at the same time, which is fine. Then we need to hear something, of course, so we're going to want a signal chain to run from 3 and 4, which is where we've assigned it to in our compressor, then into the EQ, and then into a channel of the mixer. Now we do the same for the snares, so we'll assign these pads, that's all 3 different parts of the snare I've got, all layered together. We'd assign them to the link, each on the link E, so it's triggered together. And the same, we've got them running out of the second output of the Kong. So 5 and 6 for each one. And then we'd connect the 5 and 6 to our equalizer, to the next equalizer, and into our line 6 to 2 mixer. Next we're going to connect the mixer to the scream, then to our maximizer, and then into the from devices. Now we should hear something. Excellent. Now because I've taken the RV7000 off, or haven't plugged it in yet, it's just very clean and no real sort of smack to the snare, or no reverb on the snare, should I say. So if we plug that in to the sends and the return, and we've dialed it in here at max for the snare and about a quarter for the drum, the kick drum, and now when we play it, we've got a nice tail, a reverb tail on there. So just to quickly explain EQing, the bass drum you can see here coming out of 3 and 4, we've EQ'd it at around about on the low shelf, turned the low shelf on, cut some of the low shelf at 30 Hz because we want to make room for our sub. We've got param 1 at 140 Hz because that's where the drum is hitting. So we've got a little peak of 4.3 dB just to pitch it where it wants to be. Param 2, we've got the 20 kilohertz right down to minus 18.3 dB, so it's rolling it all the way off just to make room for other parts of the mix. The snares, what we've done is we've cut some of the 140 where our bass drum is hitting for whatever reason. Maybe, I mean, they're not both hitting at the same time, but I've done it anyway. And I've pitched up about 220 on the second EQ. I've used 2 EQs so I can roll off because there's not enough param 1 and 2s to do all this kind of thing. So that's why I've used 2 EQs. So we've got param 1 again at about 228, pitched up by 5 dB, just to add basically more of the frequency spectrum there, because that's kind of where these snares or this clap snare is hitting. And again, another little peak there at about 2K, 2.1K. just to make it a bit cleaner or a bit sort of louder in that particular section. Again, we've rolled off a tiny bit of the bottom end because we want to make room for our sub. And that's it. The scream is on tape compression or distortion, and the damage type, because that's the cleanest type, damage control 34, P1 max, and P2 64. That's the compression part of our tape compression. We don't want it too much, we want it about half. If you take it to too much, it just sort of distorts or just overly compresses it. So if you leave it at half, maybe a little bit lower, you can dial that into taste really, but always about that much. We've got the mastering or the master gain on 115, and on the maximizer we've got input gain as 4.3, the limiter is on, 4 millisecond look ahead is on, soft clip is on, and we've got the amount of 50. That is pretty much it. So once you've got this saved as a patch, I mean, you can just initialize this, for instance, and then every time it's just going to load up straight away, and you can just re-input some new drums. And remember, every time you go put a drum in here, you got to assign it. If it's kick drums, assign it to your 3 and 4. If it's snares, assign it to your 5 and 6. And that's basically it. And then you can sort of sculpt your drums whichever way you want, based on what sounds or particular drum samples that you're using. If you think I've missed anything there, or you want to ask any questions, stick it in the comments. Feel free to request any other tutorials if you want. And I might even put a link to my MediaFire to this sample or this patch, so you don't have to go through the rigmarole of doing everything. I could have just put it in there, but I thought I'd try and explain it as well. So yeah, thanks for your time.